Do you find yourself often overwhelmed in busy environments? Environments where you're subjected to bright lights, noise, smells, textures, tastes. If that's you, then you may be struggling with sensory overload. And sensory overload is something that autistic people often struggle with. I'm Adele Burton Bailey, a psychotherapist at Manchester Wellbeing Centre. And in this video, we're going to identify what sensory overload is and give you some tips for how you can help yourself. So sensory overload is where several senses are overwhelmed at any one time. The classic for an autistic person is where you might enter a supermarket or grocery store. And here you are assaulted by various things that attack your senses. So for example, a supermarket or grocery store is the classic autistic person difficult area. And here you might go into the store and your senses are assaulted from various perspectives. For example, you have the light, which is just overwhelming, and you have the noise of canned music and the noise from people just generally being in the store. You might round the aisle and find a group of people stood together, and that can be overwhelming. And then you're round another aisle, and the smells from the bakery store are overwhelming. So that sensory overload becomes utterly overwhelming for the autistic person. It triggers the fight or flight system in the body, and the person just needs to get out, needs to get away. So what does that actually look like? Well, we have the brain like this. This is the new brain. This is the old brain. And in the old brain, we have something underneath here called the amygdala. They're two almond-shaped structures. And in there is the fight or flight response. In autistic people, the amygdala is actually slightly enlarged. What that means is that somebody who is autistic with an enlarged amygdala is more susceptible to stress and to stressful situations. So you're more prone to stress and therefore fight or flight response. And therefore that's where the overload and burnout comes. So when you feel overwhelmed, what can you do to help yourself? Well, there are several things. One thing, for example, are some grounding techniques. For example, you could use finger breathing. In finger breathing, you breathe in as you go up the finger, out as you come down the finger, in as you go up the finger, out as you go down the finger. Now, I'm making it very obvious, but actually, if I put my hands in my lap and do the same thing, you can't tell I'm doing it. So it won't be obvious to anybody else. What this does is regulate the heartbeat and regulate the breath, and helps to convince the body that there's no reason for it to go into the fight or flight mode, no reason for it to feel threatened, and it begins to calm down. So one really good grounding technique is to use the 5-4-3-2-1 method. Here, it doesn't really matter how you structure it, but for example, you could focus on 5 things that you can see, 4 things that you can touch, 3 things that you can hear, 2 things that you can smell, and 1 thing that you can taste in your environment. Focus on those things, identify them, notice them. And in that noticing, again, what we're doing is bringing down the heartbeat, bringing down the threat level, and helping to calm you down. So there are some practical things you can do to prepare yourself for the supermarket. You could buy yourself some lightly tinted sunglasses so that you protect yourself from the excessive light. You could wear some ear defenders or some earbuds which filter out excessive noise. Before going to the supermarket, you could put on your favourite clothes so that you feel comfortable. You could sing your favourite song to yourself. And another good idea is to wear a TENS machine, TENS machine. And a TENS machine is actually meant for pain, for chronic pain. But it produces a pulse that's regular. And what that does is help you to focus on that pulse and keep yourself calm. So in the longer term, one way of helping yourself is to establish a calm routine. Here, a routine will help to relieve the fight or flight response so that you no longer feel triggered. That routine might, for example, be getting up at the same time each day, having lunch at the same time each day, having dinner at the same time each day. Autistic people often need a level of structure that neurotypical people don't need, and that's okay. It's about talking to people about what your needs are. Going back to the supermarket example from earlier, lots of supermarkets now offer autistic hour, so you can research when your supermarket offers this, and what they do is turn down the lights, take out the noise, stop the smells, and that can be really welcoming for an autistic person. So another idea would be for you to get some fidget toys. These you can keep in your pocket and just play with them randomly. So they could be little popper things or things that you can twirl in your fingers. And they're great because they're little distractions that help keep you focused on what you need to be doing. In the professional environment, your workplace, there are lots of things you can consider doing to help yourself as an autistic person. For example, you could wear noise-cancelling headphones or earbuds to help filter out some of the more excessive noises in your office. You could take regular sensory breaks. So take yourself outside for a few minutes. Do some deep breathing or some finger breathing and just allow yourself to settle. Structure your workday. So for example, you might do your emails in the morning and then again at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. You might return phone calls at certain times. And those things are okay. They're all reasonable adjustments. And of course, you could have therapy. In therapy, it would be individualized for you so that you can talk with your therapist about what kind of things you need in the workplace and at home, how you can express those needs, and what can be done to support you fully.